Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Chee-Tash. My name is Chris, and today we're going to be going over Atomic Habits, Chapter 3 How to Build Better Habits in 4 Simple Steps, book by James Clear. If you guys remember last time, we talked about Chapter 2, which was the main takeaway from that chapter was the layers of behavior change and where we want to sit within those layers as far as creating goals for ourselves. So the 3 layers were outcomes, processes, and identity. And James talked about how most goals fail because most goals are in the outcomes layer of this continuum. And when you're in the outcomes layer, all you're focused on is just getting it done. But then once you get it done, there's issues with that because once it's done, you don't want to really continue with that pursuit anymore because it's done. It could lead to failure. It could lead to you viewing yourself as a failure and you not even wanting to try it again. So he advocated for goals to stay in this identity layer of the continuum. So when you change your identity and you change those habits, it makes the goals now stick. So you don't say that I want to quit smoking. You say to yourself, I want to become a non-smoker, because the non-smoker identity is a lifetime. Not smoking could only last, a week. You could go a week without smoking, but you could then go back to smoking because you still identify as a smoker. So that was chapter 2. Today, we're going to discuss how to build these better habits in a 4-step process. So let's go to the first slide here and give a brief introduction to this gentleman, Edward Thorndike. In 1898, he was doing some experiments, and he found that when he places a cat in a puzzle box, essentially, this puzzle box was an enclosed fixture, and it had a lever at one of the ends. And in order to escape the box, you had to pull the lever, and then that allows you to escape the box to some source of food. So if the cat performed the right action, it could escape the box. So if it pulled on the lever. Now, when the cat was first introduced into the box, it was kind of clawing around, didn't know what to do until it found the lever, but it took a while. It was exploring, it was experimenting, it didn't really know what to do until it found the lever and it escaped and they got some food. Over multiple trials, from putting that cat back in the box or taking multiple other cats and putting them in the box, over time, the cats learned to associate the lever with the reward of the food and escaping from this solitary confinement. Over time, it got faster and faster. So the first 3 trials, the cats took on average 1.5 minutes to escape. But then the last 3 trials, the cats took on average 6.3 seconds to escape. So what does this all mean? It means that over time, the cats would just cut straight to the solution and to the reward. And why they would do that is kind of the basis of this chapter. So why does your brain build habits in the first place? So Edward Thorndike, this is a quote from him in the book that James talks about. Behaviors followed by satisfying consequences tend to be repeated, and those that produce unpleasant consequences are less likely to be repeated. So a habit is simply something that is repeated automatically. And it isn't repeated automatically at first. When you first come across a problem like the cats, you're exploring, you're experimenting. This is a period of time where your neurological activity in the brain is high because you don't really know what to do. You don't really know what's going to give you the response that you like or the reward that you like. But then after you explore and then you find that thing that gives you the reward, then you can remember it for next time. And the next time you do it, it requires less brain activity, less conscious mind effort. And in reading this chapter, I get a lot of this kind of harkens back to our book with winning in mind, and the subconscious mind is where practice and the habits from practice form so that you can call on them when you need them in competition. Kind of the same thing here that James is saying. So activity is altered to repeat the desired outcome. Once you hit that reward, you know for next time, hey, I need to do these steps in order to get this good response that I want. And that's kind of how habits are created, he says. Habits are created when you explore around, you figure out what you need to get to the response that you want. And then over time, you end up skipping the trial and error process and you end up going straight to the solution, just like the cats. They got faster once they got put in the box, they got faster at just hitting the lever, let me get some food. And James goes on to talk about this is essentially an automatic script that is run. And again, this is very similar to what Lanny Basham was saying and with winning in mind. Continuing forward, habits help to alleviate mental energy from the conscious mind so you can allocate more attention to other tasks, because in the conscious mind, you can really only focus on a certain number of things. So once you get a good habit down, a positive habit down, I mean, it could be a negative habit down too, you just run this automatic script that it takes it away from the conscious mind. And then the whole point is if you get positive habits down, then your conscious mind is free to explore or free to focus on things or take on new challenges that require a lot of mental effort and require you to focus with your conscious mind. This is the thing that some people say who are critical of forming habits. They say, well, if I form a habit, then I'm really tied down to one thing. And then that way, I don't really have freedom because I'm tied to my habits. Like I always have to do something. And James says that this is kind of a false dichotomy between freedom and routine. Routines help you with freedom, he says, because when the basics of life are handled and done, your mind can focus on new challenges. Think about it from, a business perspective. When you have a handle, you have a good financial routine, you have a good routine on just simply getting products out the door, then you have time to think about better ways to run your business. You can focus on the new challenges. So I think that habits actually give you freedom. And there's a quote from Jocko Willink. It's actually the title of his book, I think, Discipline Equals Freedom. It gives you freedom because once you have a handle on things, on certain things in your life, and you do have good habits, you're allowed to focus on the other positives of life. You're allowed to focus on family or hanging out with friends or working on stuff to get that next promotion. If you have all the other habits down of, hey, I'm going to sit down and study an hour a day. Hey, I'm going to take an hour out of my day to do networking on LinkedIn, etc. So I think it's a very positive thing. I agree with James there. So how do habits work? Well, James talks about 4 steps to making a habit work. There's a cue, a craving, a response, and a reward, and they work in that order. So the first thing you have to have is a cue. A cue is the thing that initiates the behavior, and it's the thing that you do because you think that a reward is coming down the line. So this could be, if we are using our cat example, you're put in a box and you visually see the lever. That's maybe the cue. There's everything else in this box is plain, but you see the lever. And that's a cue for you to initiate some sort of behavior to the lever. Next is the craving. So the craving is the motivational desire, and it's the thing that you want to do to get the thing that you want to have. The thing that you do to get what you want to have. So what is a cat craving inside the box? It wants to get out of the box. Maybe it's hungry too. It needs food and needs to get out of the box. So there is a desire to initiate behavior to try to get out the box. And James's important note here that James says that it's not the thing itself, it's the thing that it brings. So I know smoking's an easy example to use. You don't crave smoking, you crave the relief or the stress busting relief that it brings, or the social aspect that it brings. But the act itself, you don't really crave. So it's not the fact that the cat wants to push or pull the lever, it wants the food at the end of it. That's what you need to crave. That's really what the craving is. Next, you have the response, and this is the actual habit itself. So the actual activity that you do to get the reward. So this is the actual act of pulling the lever. If the cat is in the box, the actual act of pulling the lever is the response. And James says here that it really, your response depends on the ability and how motivated you are to do it. If you're not motivated to do it, then the habit isn't going to stick. And actually, he says if any of these 4 steps are missed, the habit's not going to stick. So first of all, does the cat have the ability to pull the lever? Is it close enough to the cat? That's important, right? Because if the lever is way too high, the cat can't. That's a funny way of saying that. The cat can't jump to reach it. Then it's not going to matter how motivated it is to do it. You're just not going to get the reward from there, and the habit's not going to stick, because eventually, even though the cat is motivated to hit the lever, it can't do it. It's limited by its ability. The habit's not going to form. It's going to move on to something else. So you need to have the ability and the motivation to pursue the reward by responding in the fashion that you need to get the reward. Another example James uses in the book is if you're short, you can't jump high. Yes, obviously you can work on jumping, but there is a human limit to jumping, genetics, muscle, being athletic, flexibility, what have you. And yes, you can improve on your jumping, but you're not going to dunk the basketball. So if that's the habit that you're trying to stick to, you're going to be limited by just your physical abilities in trying to dunk a basketball. Lastly, you have the reward, and this is the final countdown, the end goal and the satisfaction and the teaching that comes with getting the reward, because that's what James says here. The 2 things that a reward gives us. It gives us satisfaction, and it teaches us. What does it teach us? It teaches us that next time we can follow these same steps and get the same satisfaction. So next time the cat goes to inside the box, it knows, okay, I explored all of this box, but the lever was the only thing that got me out. So next time I'm in here, I'm just going to go straight for the lever. And over time, it gets faster and faster and faster at that response. And that's how a habit is formed. It's an endless feedback loop, says James. It's running all the time. And again, if any of any of those 4 steps are missed, the habit won't stick. The habit won't stick. The purpose of every habit is to solve the problem you face. And the problem can be multifaceted, but it comes down to alleviating some sort of pain, or bringing you some sort of satisfaction. Next slide, the 4 laws of behavior change. So when the laws, or James kind of talks about them as levers, when the laws are in the right place, good habits stick are created. So the 4 laws of behavior change are: you want to make it obvious, you want to make it attractive, you want to make it easy, and you want to make it satisfying. And each one of these laws lines up with the steps within the 4 steps of behavior change that we talked about. So you want to make it obvious, that's the Q step, because the cue needs to be obvious. It can't be something that you're going around and exploring all day and all day. You need that some sort of hint. So when the cat's in the box, again, you can't put the lever so far away that it can't see it. You need to make it obvious. You got to put it, within the cat's reach. That's the cue part. The behavior change that you want, it's got to be obvious. Next, the make it attractive. This is the craving phase. You want to crave the response. The cat wants to get out of the box. So you have to make the response attractive. This is the craving phase. Next, you have to make it easy. Again, you got to put the lever within the cat's reach. It's got to be something that's within reach of you in order for you to have the motivation to then pursue the response. And then the response itself, the reward at the end of the response has to be satisfying. If you pull the lever and, it doesn't do anything, well, then it's not going to satisfy that craving. So then the cat doesn't pull the lever anymore. It tries to look for another way out of the box. So you have to give that reward at the end, after the response. Inversely, there's an inversion of the 4 laws. So this is what you can do to get rid of a bad habit. And you basically do the inverse of those 4 laws, the 4 levers that we just said in the last slide. You make it invisible. Again, this is the craving phase, or the cue phase. Make it invisible so that a craving isn't cued. Make it unattractive. Like, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to hit that lever when it doesn't? It's covered in like sticky stuff. It's covered in like goop. So every time the cat hits it, it just gets all over its paws and makes a mess, etc. It's not going to want to hit the lever anymore. Next, make it difficult. This was the response phase. So again, if the lever is so high up that the cat can't jump, then it's not going to want to pursue the reward at the end of hitting that lever. And then once maybe if the lever is low enough and it hits the lever, maybe the reward is nothing special. It's like just a bag of rocks and the cat's hungry. What's it going to do with some rocks? So that's how you stop a bad habit, is make it the inverse of those 4 laws. So to conclude, habits are behaviors repeated enough times that they become automatic. And habits are there to solve problems in your life. And a lot of problems are related to you want to be comfortable, or you want to be satisfied, or you want to solve, like it says there, you want to solve some sort of issue for yourself. There's the 4 steps, or the 4 steps, the feedback loop of forming a habit. There's the cue, there's the craving, there's a response, and there's the reward, which leads to the 4 laws of behavior change, or how you make a behavior change in your life. Is you have to make it obvious, you have to make it attractive, you have to make it easy, and you have to make it satisfying. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for Chapter 3 of Atomic Habits. We'll be back next time with Chapter 4. I might start mixing in some more eloquent JavaScript videos too. I know I've been getting a lot of messages about that. We did one recently. We did one a couple weeks ago. It was the first one I did in a while, but yeah, I'll start trying to mix in more of those too, guys. Thank you very much for listening. Oh, check out the podcast. Going to be releasing an interview that I did with a very prominent figure in the tech industry, very prominent author. So check that out. Thank you guys very much for listening. My name is Chris. This has been Chee-Tash. Take care, everybody.